Travis. You're the second guest for Hanging with Ohmy. Does that make you feel
That makes me feel
second
amazing.
best?
First
No,
was
thank you for joining me with this. I appreciate it. So Travis is you and I have been kind of movie buddies for a
oh
while
yeah,
now. Try to go to see movies in the theater as much as we can. Right, we're both dads who love movies, which sometimes makes it a little interesting, right, to
right.
watch movies. So, all right. So, how the show works is, I ask a friend to pick a movie. We watch that. But before we get into it, I always like to kind of put, the friend's kind of perspective on films in context, right? So maybe you can share with the many, many viewers that we have here on Hanging with Ohmy, kind of what was like really the seminal kind of like movie that you first remember watching and it's like, wow, this is amazing, I love movies, or just kind of shaped you as a moviegoer.
Well, as a child of the '80s, it's always interesting because I feel like the kinder trauma stuff is kind of looked back, over time and be like, hey, I grew up in the '80s and we watched some crazy stuff, right?
Right.
And so I feel like there's an aspect of that to like most of the people our age, and
Mm-hmm.
so like
For
my like
sure.
earliest like movie memories is like Wizard of Oz and like just being freaked out beyond belief by like the Wicked Witch of the West. You don't really understand what's going on. You just know there's
Right.
something terrifying on screen and like didn't want to be in the same room. In hindsight, it's like, yeah, my mom liked the movie or whatever, so it's like, it's a classic, aired on TV all the time. And like, why wouldn't everybody want to see this? But, I just couldn't, grasp that as far as that goes. But yeah, I mean, really the first movie that I really connected with early on, it's still essentially my favorite movie is E.T., which a lot of people do know this about me. But and I think the reason why is that, it's a very humanistic story
Mm-hmm.
about a young kid looking for friendship and, kind of in the trappings of this alien and, all the Jesus Christ allegory and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, it's a young kid and he wants to have a friend, right? And, you got all the stuff in his room that was in my room with the Star Wars toys and the Hulk stuff. And, so it's like, man, I'm like a cipher for this character, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think so that movie, but that movie does have a lot of like classic filmmaking to it. There's
Mm-hmm.
cross cutting in the scenes with the frogs and Elliot getting kissed and back and
Right.
forth between ET and him being at home and what's going on at school. There's just the unbelievable music from that movie with John Williams, and so you don't necessarily at that age even understand that there's a guy that composed this music to this
Right.
specific film that Steven Spielberg shot, and then like he's added this extra emotional level to it. But as as you get older and you become a film fan, and like you start to realize that, hey, there's some science behind this and some artistry behind it both, and you kind of put all that stuff together and you realize like, wow, this is pretty amazing. And so again, it's just one of those movies that worked for me on an emotional level. But then as I got older, I can also see the true like craftsmanship of it, and also
Yeah.
super mega popular, from back in the day. So that was definitely like one of the formative films. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I think fear, drives a lot of this stuff too when you're young. I mean, I remember a babysitter renting The Elephant Man, David Lynch's The Elephant Man, which is
Really.
which is a tremendous, tremendous movie, right?
It is, but not
Uh,
for little kids.
no, like I said, again, another movie I just could not comprehend. I did not know what necessarily was going on. All I knew is that the John Merrick or the Elephant Man character like wigged me out beyond belief,
Yeah.
and that I would see him in my doorway at night. And so my dad was like having to give me like tapes and stuff to listen to like just take my mind off it because I kept seeing the Elephant Man everywhere I go. And it's like, and then another thing as you get older, it's like this is a really like amazing movie and like just a tragic story about a extremely unbelievable human being.
Right.
But just the mind of a kid is just like, yeah, I don't even know
Yeah.
what I'm watching here.
Well, it's funny because, yeah, I can remember seeing both of those films when I was pretty young as well. Did you see E.T. in the theater? Do you
I think I
remember?
did. I mean, things get a little hazy when you get to be this old and grizzled.
Yeah.
But I do think that I think so. I mean, I
Yeah.
believe so.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember if I saw it in the theater either, but yeah, it was like a main movie in our house for sure. It was one that my dad really liked. We loved it. Yeah, so that's a good choice for sure. Um, I knew that you were going to say that one because
Yeah,
but I think we've never really had a discussion about ET. The funny thing about ET, at least in my circle right now, is that my wife Ann hates that movie. But
so she
only
has no
because, but it's
market
kind of related
control.
to, yeah, it's related to what you're talking about. Like she was freaked out by ET, right? As a kid, specifically the scene where you first, shine the light on him and he's like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. The cornfield in like Northern California or wherever they're at, like, as an Illinois kid, it's like, yeah, we have corn, but wait,
Yeah.
corn
And
near
so,
these
yeah,
California
she
mountains.
was freaked out by him. So it's like no ET in our house, right? And I'm pretty sure my kids would be uh, kind of freaked out by him. Have you shown Ava and
Yeah,
Owen?
they both like it. I mean, I think it's not a movie they connect with the way I would have connected with, but I mean, they both like, yeah, it's a good movie. It's like, sometimes you'll show a kid that's like, this movie's so important to me, and like, I want you to see it, and then you're like, didn't you love that? It's like, yeah, it's fine,
It happens
and
to
it's
me
like,
all the time.
yeah, I know you guys talked about Dark Crystal last week too, and
Yes.
yeah, I guess in terms of like formative movies growing up, I mean, we very much, anything Jim Henson related, kind of both, Muppet movie, very traditional, funny, all that kind of stuff, and then just, things like the Labyrinth and or Labyrinth, the
Yeah.
Labyrinth,
That
the
was a big
Labyrinth
movie for
movie,
me. Yeah.
and the Dark Crystal was some of our favorites. But I took Ava to a repertory screening of the Dark Crystal. I may have told you about this a few years back at the Art Theater,
Yes. Yeah,
and
you did tell me about that. Now that you mentioned it,
like
I forgot.
the scene where they like drain the life essence out of the podling or whatever. She's literally like cowering in fear, like she's head down, like between her legs, like shaking, and just could not handle it. I mean, she'll be fine now, but like at the time, just no way. And so when we were done, though, I told her, it's like, hey, you may not have enjoyed all of that movie, but like, hey, you're as tough as an '80s kid now, basically, is what I'm
Yeah.
getting at.
So I don't have a good segue from that to our film, but maybe you can tell our viewers what was the film that you chose for us to watch and why you chose that film.
I chose Birds of Prey, and what is it? The Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Is that the full title?
That is the full title, which is a great title, right?
It is a great title, but I do think that's what part of what's kind of flabbergasting off the bat is that in today's world of this market-driven, everything like I'm sure marketed to the nth degree, is that somebody thought that was like a good title to lead with and for their DC blockbuster to start this year, right?
Right.
So I know that the movie was a box office disappointment, but it just seems like, yeah, man, who didn't see that coming? I guess in terms of, I don't know. I guess maybe they thought, hey, all these people are dressing up as Harley Quinn for Halloween, and that'll be enough to carry us through, or what. But yeah, sometimes the marketing for these things is amazing. Other times it's kind of like, yeah, what were they thinking, and why did they think this would work?
Right.
But not that we really care about that in terms of the quality of the movie. At the end of the day, I mean, there's great movies with terrible titles. Really bad movies that have cool marketing and great trailers and all that kind of junk.
Oh yeah, 100%. So speaking of trailers, so since we're talking about Birds of Prey, I will cut the trailer in right here. You can watch that. I'll put a little thing where you can skip to where we'll talk more about the film. But here is the trailer.
You know what a harlequin is? A harlequin's role is to serve. It's nothing without a master. No one gives two shits who we are beyond that. The Joker and I broke up. I wanted a fresh start. But it turns out I wasn't the only dame in Gotham looking for emancipation.
Spectacular news! Miss Quinn, she belongs to me.
Who are you guys?
Here's the deal, Quinn. You need me!
He's after all of us now. None of us are walking out of here unless we work together.
With you. You gotta be kidding me.
Isn't this fun? It's just like a sleepover. We should order pizza. Big Cosmos. Harley, focus. Okay. I'm the one they should be scared of. Not you. Not Mr. J. Because I'm Harley freaking Quinn.
Who's having a good time?
Get ready, ladies. Psycho chick. I never call a woman a chick. I'll accept broad, lady, woman, and on occasion, bitch. Bitch? What are you talking about? That for me, will you?
And we're back.
That was a very fast trailer.
It was very fast for us, in the world of editing. So I feel like you can't talk about this movie without first mentioning Suicide Squad. I know that we've talked about Suicide Squad before, but where are you in terms of your enjoyment of Suicide Squad? Were you a pro Suicide Squad film, an anti Suicide Squad film, or kind of a meh?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. I've seen worse movies. I mean, I feel like honestly, I just feel like it's easy to pile on movies that are quote unquote bad and not good. So it's like it didn't do a lot for me, but I saw it in the theater and maybe revisited the director's cut, which didn't change it a lot, but didn't necessarily feel like, hey, this is an actively terrible film. But I guess this is also the movie that is next in line for the release. Once we got past the Snyder cut, it's not even out yet, but release the Snyder cut. Now release the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad is the next rallying cry, I guess, because
I heard that. So is there you said there's a director's cut of this?
Evidently, yeah, there was. They kind of butchered the original version of that movie, and then basically cut everything to look like a music video or whatever, which is why a lot of people don't like the way the movie flows. But so I'm not necessarily championing any of these movies to be released, but so yeah, I wasn't going to hold that against Birds of Prey coming into it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also wasn't something I was like, hey, this is my top 5 movies of the year to check out. Back when we thought we would actually see movies this year.
Yeah. I mean,
so,
Suicide.
I
mean, Suicide Squad for me. I mean, I agree. There are certainly worse films, but it's in some ways even like annoyed me more than some of those worse films, right? Because some of the worst films you can still feel are like a singular vision, right? Like someone like made the film that they were intending to make, but all I can see in that film is the hack job. I mean, the editing in that film is atrocious. The way characters are introduced is mind-boggling to me. The structure of the story is weird. I'm so tired of the beam of light into the sky and everyone, trying to, like the Avengers, right? Like that started this beam of light into the sky thing. But it has good performances. I mean, I thought I thought Margot Robbie was good. I thought Will Smith was fine. I did not care for Jared Leto's performance of the Joker. I'm glad that he is absent from Birds of Prey. Spoiler alert. He is not in Birds of Prey. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think it must be like to be Jared Leto between 2 Oscar winners playing the same character? You've got Heath Ledger, Oscar. Jared Leto, universally like, viled performance, and then Joaquin Phoenix, Oscar. Right? It's just like,
I would feel a little more sorry for him he didn't seem like the most pretentious d-bag on the planet. But
it's
and
like,
I said,
yeah,
maybe he's a wonderful person. I don't know, but he just seems like, and I don't know if he's like a method actor when it comes to all of his performances.
I
But
think it's, yeah.
I feel like it just seems like he's a guy that maybe a little self-serious when it comes to things, and so to and I said, his Joker didn't do anything for me. Obviously it's taking on an iconic character that very difficult to do something both original and certainly award worthy with. So it's a tall mountain to climb for anybody, I think. But really, I don't know if he's that great of an actor.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think he's okay in certain roles, but like I just I don't know. He's just never done a whole lot for me in terms of performances, but
It
maybe
was,
I've
to
just not
me,
seen the
yeah,
right ones.
just so surface, so like all the goofy ticks and everything. It just, I don't know. It was so irritating. I'm glad that he wasn't in it much, I guess. But we're not going to talk about Suicide Squad. Let's talk about Birds of Prey. So, and this we'll probably get into some spoilers, and I'll try to put like where the spoilers will end, so you can kind of click to that part if you want to see Birds of Prey. So, I guess overall, what did you think?
I would say I'm mixed on it, but mixed to positive, not like overwhelmingly positive. But it's like I think that it's a movie with some really strong attributes.
Yeah,
That doesn't completely balance all the things it's trying to do. It doesn't necessarily have that engaging of a narrative in terms of what's transpiring, and this is not necessarily anything new in terms of a lot of comic book films. It's like you got point A, you've got point B. It's some characterization along the way, and things kind of have a little bit of a bow on them towards the
yeah,
end. But it really, in terms of narrative and things like that, I feel like it's a movie that included some nonlinear storytelling just to try and spice things up, because there really just wasn't anything that engaging in terms of what was actually happening.
right.
Um,
Yeah. That's. I think that's, yeah, very true. I mean, to be honest, like I think I liked it more than how you're describing. Like I actually really liked the movie despite its flaws. And I didn't like the kind of circling back narrative, kind of Pulp Fiction-esque type things. But I don't know. I maybe I was just looking for something that's like a little bit, you know, I was about to say light, but I think it actually has some pretty interesting angles, right? That don't beat you over the head with feminism, and looking at women in film, looking at women's in real life, and so yeah. But to kind of go into like the summary or whatever. So I categorize this film. It seems like it's kind of like a breakup movie, right? Like she's the start of the movie. It's an animated sequence that I thought was pretty cool. You get to learn more
yeah.
about Harley Quinn, or Harleen Quinzel, and kind of her backstory of like, sounds like abuse growing up. And I'll just say this too: I haven't read the comic books. I was not a big DC comic book guy. I was pretty much like X-Men were like my only comic books growing up. So I don't know, and I think Harleen, or I think Harley Quinn was introduced like in the early '90s, right? I mean, so I don't even think
I would tell you, but I'm in the same boat, because like I grew up as a Marvel kid essentially. I liked some DC stuff, but didn't have anywhere near the exposure to that side of things. So I guess I look forward to these DC movies simply because I'm just a little more ignorant when it comes to the background. So other than kind of watching some of the Marvel movies and saying, okay, yeah, they hit this point, they hit this point, they hit this point, it's kind of nice to just be able to go into something relatively blind and say, like, I don't know anything about this character. Movie, why don't you go ahead and show me what I need to know? And so you're not sitting there thinking like, oh, hey, they completely botched this thing. So yeah, I think that I that's kind of rings true to me, simply because like my reference point for that character early on was the animated series of all things, which I didn't watch a lot, but this in pop culture,
Yeah.
So I feel like I just don't have as many reference points for it. But yeah, I mean, I guess, and maybe I'm coming off a little bit strong in terms of being mixed on it, but I feel like it's a movie that will age well in terms of doing some things different. I think those uniqueness and some of those different perspectives and doing things outside of the box to the degree it did will have it played pretty well over time. And so,
yeah, yeah, I
think it'll grow in.
I do too. I think it's a lot like I think it gets compared to Deadpool, right?
Right.
The first Deadpool, and I can see that the tone is goofy, more comedic. It does have some pretty hyper stylized violence. I remember when
Right.
I remember when I rented it and. Ben, my son, asked, was like, "Oh, what's that rated?" And I'm like, I just assume like I'm probably PG-13. It is not PG-13 at all. I mean, it is
No, and
very, very R rated, which hey, go for it, right? It was great, right? I mean, I'm so like I said, so it's a breakup movie. It starts with her Harley Quinn blowing up the Ace chemical factory, right? That she is special to her and Joker, because I guess that's where she fell in to the chemicals and kind of became fully Harley Quinn. Right?
I was confused because growing up watching the '89 Batman, I thought it was Axis Chemicals. I don't know the actual comic reference. Wasn't it Axis Chemicals? I don't know.
I maybe it was. For some reason, I thought it was Ace Chemicals. But I'll look it up and I'll make sure I put it underneath our subtitle it for us. But this is like her way of saying to everyone, the Joker and I are broken up. She does have a cool line at one point. She says, "Behind every successful man is a badass broad," right? And she kind of talks about like that, she was sometimes as an equal partner in some of the decisions, right, that got Joker to his status as like an untouchable kind of kingpin. But now that she is not with him, she's, discarded and like everybody is after her. That's where they'd freeze frame on people, right, and like share what their grievance was.
Yeah.
With Harley Quinn, whether she's like someone punched someone out at the roller derby, or broke his legs, right. Or tattooed his face, but she's just wanting to eat her breakfast sandwich. And I don't know about you, Travis, but I highly relate to her love of a breakfast sandwich and how upsetting that was to her when the breakfast sandwich was kind of hit into the street and wasted, right? Which I thought, I'm like, is this going to be the motivation for the entire movie right here, the loss of her sandwich? I'm glad it wasn't, but I thought for a second, I'm like, this is going to be it. This is going to be like the reason for the whole movie is because she's, trying to get her sandwich or whatever.
The thing I liked about the egg, and I am a well-known hater of anything egg.
Oh, okay.
And so I can't relate to that at all. But I will say that I did like how they were like making the sandwich in the diner, they've got this Barry White music on in the background, and it's just, just setting the scene. She's just like lusting after this egg sandwich. So it's really kind of funny to me to recognize that was the choice for the soundtrack was Barry White. Ewan McGregor, aka Obi-Wan Kenobi, and everybody else, like, I guess going back to just the main thrust of the movie, I do like that, you got Ewan McGregor, famous actor, in there as the villain, and I think he does a great job, actually. I think he is really trying to walk a line. I mean, I think he knows what kind of movie he's in. I think sometimes you see a movie where an actor just doesn't really kind of fit and doesn't know the movie they're in. I think he very much knows the type of movie that he's in. Yes. And so he's both kind of very comical at times. And then, the scene in the club where he makes the girl get on the table is pretty menacing, honestly. So I think as a representative of the movie trying to balance these tones, and like I said, I think that it probably strove for some Deadpool. The first Deadpool movie probably hit maybe closer to the Deadpool 2 in terms of success, but I think trying to balance these tones of really gnarly stuff and like some Arnold like snapping of limbs and bones and stuff like that at point, and then also some real goofy comedy and some zany stuff, right? I mean, one of the scenes takes place basically at a trampoline park. It's like an action scene at a trampoline park, right?
It is, yeah,
But
yeah.
but I feel like Ewan McGregor really kind of hit that tone really well between balancing those two things. And so I think he's really good in it. But I think what's also really cool is like he's awesome and he's the villain. I don't think the villain is necessarily overly compelling. I think again he's kind of a little bit of a means to an end. But I think in terms of what he's given to do, I think he does very well with it. But I also like the fact that outside of him, basically you've got a movie that is entirely about female characters, which is kind of like the opposite of what you normally see, which is, you got Black Widow and stuff in the Avengers, but it's usually pretty much a dude fest, right? So, so I like the fact you've got a movie directed by a woman of color, and you've got multiple female characters, and
Written by a
so
woman,
it's just kind of,
right? So, yeah.
exactly. So yeah, I think it's just kind of a cool change of pace, and again, I think something that will help it age well. But yeah, I thought. Ewan McGregor, again, not a character I'm familiar with from the comics, but like I just think he doesn't really do much as a quote unquote villain other than just be kind of a terrible person and leading and kind of directing some awful things.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I thought like he starts off, and aren't we like introduced to him like he's overseeing like his henchman played by Chris Messina, character actor, but never seen him in a role like this, right? Where he's basically like the real kind of serial killer, horrible person that carries out all the bad things, right? But it's like basically like cutting the the face off, right, of the of some folks that you find out who they are later when the movie kind of double backs again. But he's also, he's going to spare the one girl, but then she has like a snot bubble or whatever. So then he says, never mind, let's, kill her too. But I did think like his fascination or his his distaste for Harley Quinn, made me think that the reason is because they're kind of like they have similar qualities, right? So, and I think it even goes more to that male female relationship, right? In terms of even business, that he hates her because she takes up a lot of air in a room, right? She's always talking. She herself can be pretty violent. She cracks a lot of jokes, things like that. That's what he likes to do. So he hates that she like kind of steals his thunder, so to speak. I kind of only really pulled that from the scene where like, they kind of capture her, right? Which then I think starts the main plot, right? So the main plot is that he has a diamond, right, that he wants to get. Cassandra Cain, the teenager girl pickpocket, steals the diamond, swallows it, and then he wants Harley Quinn to go get the diamond from her and bring it back to him. And then she gets picked up by the cops, the Cassandra Cain character, and then comes like our first big, I would say, set piece, right, is Harley Quinn going to the police station.
I guess that a couple things. One, I know that basically, the diamond is a MacGuffin. Then the whole plot is basically, to lead to an ending where, spoiler alert, I guess you could say, but like this team gets together and
right.
Goes against the Black Mask. So, I mean, the diamond is a means to an end, which is again just kind of following the plot through. But I couldn't help but think when in terms of her infiltrating Gotham City PD to rescue Cassandra Cain because she has the diamond, I couldn't help but think of the original Matrix movie. When the classic scene where Neo and Trinity bust in and just the balletic violence of the whole thing, right? But I couldn't help but maybe think a little bit like, okay, you've got somebody breaking into a prison and shooting all these cops and everything. And I mean, it's done in a very like, I guess, very cool looking visual way, right, in terms of a lot of the glitter and so on and so forth that's going on during the scene. So it's really cool in that regard. But I'm also kind of thinking, did they kind of sanitize this a little bit, maybe to avoid or just kind of going in and just killing a bunch of cops? And like, it made me think about, you know, for the next Matrix movie, like, are audiences going to react well to a scene where, you know, Keanu Reeves busts in someplace and just starts gunning down everybody in sight? And, you know, I don't. I just wonder if that's something that will or won't work for modern audiences. Unfortunately, given the world we live in. So I feel like, I mean, it's a different thing. I mean, it's kind of neat to see her taking out all those guys and really, you know, a really cool action sequence. But I like the design of it all. I like the visuals of the sequence, and I thought it was pretty cool in the way that it was done. So yeah, this very, very cool sequence, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, it has like you said, it's she's using non-lethal, you know, weapons, you know, that create the kind of like that, you know, glitter effect and things when they kind of burst. A lot of that, like Zack Snyder, I call it Zack Snyder action, where it's like slow-mo, speed up, slow-mo, speed up.
The speed ramping stuff.
Yeah. And then, you know, when you're going to have that, you have like the sprinklers, right, happen. And then so they can kind of have like that effect of like the water and everything. I did think it was funny the moment she, or the cops like shoot the big stash of cocaine, right? That is sitting there, and then she just like, it's all kind of coming around her, and then she like, you know, sniffs it up and is like, ooh, you know, and it's like Popeye or something like that, and then she like jumps up. This is where she has her bat too, yeah. Right? Because it's like Harley Quinn with a bat, and then you know, gets the kid, decides she's going to take the kid in, but then of course, you know, really likes the kid, falls in love with the kid, brings the kid back to her little lair where she has like her hyena that she bought in one of the first scenes, called Bruce, right? And while this is going on, we've got, like you said, the other kind of characters. You got Black Canary, right, who is the singer, and then becomes the driver of the villain. I forget his name. I would say Black Mask, but it's Roman, right? Roman. I want to say Roman Cialis, but that's not what it is.
Salazar. No, I forget what it is, but yeah, it's one of those villain names, you know.
Yeah, but so you got Black Canary, and then you have the cop, played by wonderful Rosie Perez. Right?
Yeah.
Do the Right Thing fame.
Yeah, we both have a lot of fondness for Rosie.
Yeah, for most of the film, she's wearing a T-shirt that says, "I shaved my balls for this."
Which I thought was funny, but at the same time, I was kind of like, yeah, you know, she really going to do this? It's quite frankly,
I kind of thought, like, would she really wear it? Like, that was the only shirt. Like, that shirt was meant to just be a joke, right? For, you know, for the film. But then the fact that she kept wearing it, I was just like, come on, there's no way. There's no way that she's going to wear that shirt for half the movie.
Yeah, it seems like maybe a shirt that might have fit another character a little better, but
right,
you know, because she's a little bit more of a hard-boiled detective, at least in terms of a lot of her actions during the movie. But at first, I'm not seen her in anything in a long time,
right?
And so when I first started watching the movie, I was like, "Hey, is that?" And then she's talked, and I could hear that accent. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's Rosie Perez." So kind of her accent kind of confirmed it for me. You know, but,
the last time she played a cop would be Pineapple Express, right? I think was the last time she played a cop, which was
I don't even remember.
She was awesome in that, I thought, anyways. And so then the last bird of prey would be the Huntress, right? Or just Huntress, or the what they call the crossbow killer. But that's not that's another like kind of funny joke. It was like, everyone is like, the crossbow killer, the crossbow killer. And they're like, what's your name? Huntress.
Yeah, I really liked the scene when she's like are you talking to me scene in the mirror, you know, where she's trying to introduce herself as Huntress or whatever in this cool way. And it's kind of like, yeah, you know, just doing a little bit of audition for the introduction of yourself in like this, dramatic way. And it's like, yeah, I wonder if anybody ever actually had done that before. But yeah, so I thought she was good. A lot of comedy in her role, both seriousness as an assassin, but has some funny bits in terms of people making fun of her and taking a little bit of advantage of her self seriousness at times too. So, but I feel like she's always solid in terms of her acting, and so it's good to see her as well.
I was going to ask you, what is your favorite Mary Elizabeth Winstead film?
I mean, my mind kind of immediately goes to Scott Pilgrim,
Right.
and I'm thinking, I mean, she's not a huge part of it because she's kind of left behind, but I mean, Death Proof,
Yeah.
has grown a lot in my mind over the years. I feel like
Yeah.
underrated, if that's possible for a Tarantino movie.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, she has a small part, but it's a very funny part, right? In terms of being left with the kind of hillbilly car owner. Did you ever see the film Smashed, where she plays like an alcoholic?
I did not. I've heard great things about it though.
I've seen it. I would highly recommend it. The director of that movie was it James Ponsoldt, who also did The Spectacular Now, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead's in that has a small scene or small part. He also made End of the Tour. He actually brought that. He's been to Ebert Fest twice. He brought The Spectacular Now and The End of the Tour. So if you want to see Mary Elizabeth Winstead in a good movie, check out Smashed. Her and Aaron Paul.
On the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to me too that she was in Fargo season 3, which also starred Ewan McGregor. So a little bit of a read with those guys from third season of Fargo, which I thought they were both excellent in that as well. So
I forgot about that.
yeah, I mean, just solid performances from those two, kind of wherever they go, I think. Yeah, I mean, yeah, so many of these characters, I think, none of them necessarily blew me away, though, I guess, in terms of like, hey, this is a breakout type performance, or this is a breakout type character, and like super excited to see what they do with this person next. But, so I think that's what's also a little bit strange about it being called Birds of Prey, and, blah, 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 Harley Quinn, is because, I mean, clearly it's her show, but the Birds of Prey are not overly compelling. You kind of wait for things to come together, and, it's fun when they do, see kind of this, ass kicking group of girls or whatever. But like, I just feel like just nothing overly interesting about the group, even though they all just are fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them, but so yeah, I guess it's like anything else, more time to develop them. And if the movie would have been a bigger hit, I think you would have seen more with these characters going forward. But yeah, I just kind of wonder now, is this it? And kind of one and done with most of these.
I hope not. I mean, I did check before we jumped on. The Rotten Tomatoes score, I think, was like a 78%, and the cinema score was a 78%. So I think for the majority of the people that saw it, thought it was fine, right?
Yeah.
It seems like. I'm sure there's some people that hated it. I did go on to IMDb and look at some of the user reviews, just because I'm a masochist and I like to look at that sometimes. And some of, if you want to see some subconscious and very conscious misogyny come out of some people, read some of the user reviews to Birds of Prey. It's pretty.
I can only imagine.
I think demonstrates why the film. Like the messages of the film anyways, was when you just look at some of the response to it by some, dudes. But yeah, I mean, the big ending scene, like you said, at the kind of carnival with the, I love that for somehow she gets roller skates,
Yeah.
she gets the big mallet, the other character, they're all kind of kicking ass together. That was a fun scene. I like that they chose the Heart Song Barracuda to fight. I thought that was pretty good. The one thing though that happens at the end that it really kind of took me out of the film was when Canary uses her voice power, right? You know what I'm talking about with the voice power? That one
Yep.
just was like, it was this one too far for me, where I took my notes and I put like
Yeah.
Canary voice equals stupid, right? That's what I put in my notes. So
With that was like, well, one, going back to the roller skates, I love how they actually one of the characters in the movie, it might have been Canary, was like actually referencing and
yeah,
you know, basically made a comment about like, when did she have time to do that?
yeah,
So it's going to be very self-conscious, you know, part of that scene. But I do think that, yeah, it did take me out when Canary took out all those guys. It was kind of a little bit of a Magneto moment, I guess, or an X-Men moment. But I just feel like there's something about the way it was filmed where, you know, you had Harley Quinn basically going right in front of it. Now she's like putting her whole fingers in her ears, or, you know, covering her ears or whatnot. But it's kind of like, well, you know, if it's that damaging to everybody else, should it be safe for her to kind of roller skate through? I'm not sure about that. But I mean, you know, it's suspension of disbelief, I guess. But yeah, it just rang a little false for me as well. But yeah, I mean, I think that you've got not too many climax to a movie kind of end in an amusement park type environment, like maybe what Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 or something, you know, where like you have this zany kind of feel to things. And so I just felt like that was an example of like a very cool, like unique action sequence done in a locale that had really not been seen in a comic book movie to this point. So it's like, yeah, this is original and this is different, you know, which at this point in the life cycle of comic book movies is like, if you can do something that hasn't been done before, something original, like that's points to you in and of itself. But yeah, so I really enjoyed that part of it. I enjoyed the kind of the action sequence and the pursuit after the scream, you know, and her being pulled on the motorcycle or what have you. But yeah, so I just think it was, all that stuff was working for me outside of the thing you mentioned earlier.
so there's like two things that are just like my favorite. I think my favorite parts of the movie, but they're just so like little, like minor, but they just made me laugh so much. And one's related to the end scene where, you know, again, spoiler alert, but you've got
I think
Roman with the girl, right, on the pier, and she's like, you know, don't come any closer. And then the girl like pulls the pin and is like, I've got your ring. They kick him off the pier, and he just blows up, just explodes. It's gross.
but he left out this hilarious scream.
Yeah, he had
It's a scream.
yeah, he had this.
Well, I thought that, like, hey, this could be like a new Wilhelm, you know, like the classic Wilhelm scream. I was like, this could be the new one. It was just like so hilarious, like the way he screams right before he's blown into like a million pieces out in like the water.
Because like his little shtick is that he always says "ew," right? He'll say "ew." Like one of my favorite lines. He's showing like shrunken heads in his apartment to someone, and he says like. He's like, look at their haircuts. He's like, they're 1,000 years old, and now they're in my living room. Ew. Like, but yeah, he shrieks, blows up, and then it cuts up to like Harley Quinn and all the birds of prey standing there, and she goes, "Tacos?" It just cracked me up. Like then cut to her getting margaritas. The other one was earlier in the film, like the Marilyn Monroe. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. What kind of hallucination or whatever? And she's, you know, has like the fingers, and she tries to bite one of them. Oh, that just cracked me up. I don't know why, but it was just like so, that character, and the fact that she was wearing pants, I guess, instead of like an actual dress. I thought was pretty funny. But yeah, the shriek, tacos.
See, and I feel like,
so
having
funny.
just watched the movie the one time, I feel like, you know, those are the type of moments that, yeah, you know, on repeat viewings will probably enhance the movie, you know, just kind of fun little nuances, fun little line readings, you know. I think that'll add to some rewatchability. But yeah, that scream as he went over the edge there is unbelievable.
So yeah, I mean, and of course they kind of like set it up a little bit as a sequel or possible. I hope there is one. I enjoyed it, you know, well enough that I would stick around with these characters, let them develop a little more. I liked the tone of the film. It was just kind of fun. But I actually really liked some of the themes that they were trying to get at in terms of, you know, I think even at the end, like Rosie Perez, her captain gets credit for everything, right? And she's like did so much stuff, and then all the men are clapping for the captain, and she's like, I don't know, does she like punch one or like gives them the finger or something like that as she's like leaving?
Yeah.
Another thing to kind of underline the point, right, of the film. And I like that these women are going to get together and just kind of like, fine, you're not going to give us credit. We're going to do our own thing, right? We're going to be the birds of prey or whatever.
I think this movie accomplished a lot of what it set out to do. Again, I feel like it has a tough time in terms of what it's trying to accomplish with the tone. I think, like I said, Deadpool's a good example of doing that, mostly successful. But I think it's just two extremes, and bringing those together. Like I said, the movie does pretty well, but it's just, it's like, stand-up double as opposed to like a home run, But once you kind of know what a movie is and what it's going for, then you kind of just sit back and relax and enjoy it a little bit more.
Yeah. We purposely didn't put our star ratings on Letterboxd for this film. So do you want to give your final star rating for Birds of Prey, the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn?
I would I don't know. I guess I've ranked everything like in recent months on my Letterboxd, but I don't know. I probably would start in that 3 range, maybe to 3.5. I feel like I could go higher upon subsequent viewings, but I guess that was my gut, was something in that 3 to 3.5 range.
Yeah, I agree. I think if I had to pick a star rating right after I had watched it, I think I would say 3.5. It could go down to 3 if, but I can't see it going up to 4. But I did have a lot of fun with it. I thought it was enjoyable. I liked the message.
The message being that you are better off without Jared Leto in your life.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. So I think we, get to, the Travis Miller story, right? In terms of, I'm guessing you'll have Jared Leto play you in the movie about your life, right? Jared Leto would play Travis Miller.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in thinking about your biopic, what would be the title of the movie about your life, and who would play Travis? Or would you like to pull like a Jackie Robinson and play yourself in the Travis Miller story?
I don't think anybody would want to see that, but I guess 2 words come to mind when I think about the biopic of my life, and that's immortal and beloved. No, I'm just kidding. I would say, that it would be probably something like Even More Dazed and Confused would be the title. Because it's like, does anybody, I don't know, there's people that have amazing lives and they do amazing things, and they're just, the obituary that everybody would be envious of. But I don't know, I think most of us are just trying to figure things out as they go, and making a lot of mistakes along the way, and trying to do a lot of good also. But I think really just, does anybody really know what they're doing, or is everybody really just dazed and confused? So I feel like that would be along the lines of the name of my biopic. It'd be a really boring set. But as far as who would play it, I don't know. I had an uncle that always said I looked like Sean Green, that used to play outfield for the Dodgers.
Oh,
I don't know that he can act. But
Sean
there's
Green.
a gal from church that always calls me Ashton. Which I don't necessarily see. She's just like, thinks I look so much like Ashton Kutcher. I'm like, I don't necessarily see it, but he's a Bears fan though, so maybe could convince him to do the portrayal, given we have that in common. Well, I think that, Richard Linklater, maybe he's the director of it, and maybe he brings, kind of this nuance to it that, it's like, oh, let's shine a light on this average, boring, middle-class white guy's life, and
we haven't seen enough of those stories, right?
Right.
Yeah, it would be very Richard Linklater to do a sequel to Dazed and Confused and have it be so depressing to watch these characters in their middle-aged lives.
It would be rough.
Yeah. but I think Matthew McConaughey would still be looking for high school girls, probably. That
He's
character,
headed to jail for it this time.
right? And maybe like Ben Affleck could still be in his senior year or something. I don't know. We'll pitch it to him for his
Worth
next
a shot.
project. Yeah.
I got one question for you.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yes. Go ahead.
So I know it's not a great movie to lead off your webisode, podcast, web show, whatever you might call this, but at some point you're going to have to get around to a review of Michael Mann's Ohmy Vice.
Ohmy Vice.
Ohmy Vice. I mean, it's got to be there somewhere, right? I mean, you're a fan for mojitos. We know this. And then also the name of the show, Hangin with Ohmy Vice. I mean,
so that should be the shtick of this show. I only watch movies where I can like cram Ohmy into it somehow. I'll have to think of all the titles that I could watch. Ohmy Vice. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I'm not I have seen that.
It may not be a very long list, but
yeah, yes.
I feel like that one needs to happen. And a lot of people think that's a very underrated movie.
I need to watch that again. I haven't seen it for a really long time, and I think there's like a director's cut, right? That's supposed to be like better than the. I'll be honest. When I remember watching it and being somewhat bored, which maybe is sacrilegious or something. I love most Michael Mann movies, but for some reason that one, like I said, I have to give it a second go. But I just found it a little dull. But maybe I wasn't in the right mood. Maybe for this show, I could watch.
I hear people think it's underrated, so maybe worth a revisit. Who knows?
I will revisit and call it Ohmy Vice. So there you go. All right.
I think it's a good idea.
Yep. I am going to sign off. Thanks for everybody for watching, and thank you, Travis, again for being a part of this.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was always fun talking movies, Court.
Okay.